Welcome to the Sales Management Fireside Chat Series. I'm your host, Stephen Rosen, and I'm very excited to have my special guest today, Keith Rosen. No relation, but we do the same thing. Keith has been a pioneer in the area of sales coaching, and I'm so excited to have him join me today for a special edition of Sales Management Fireside Chats. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the founder of Star Results, a boutique sales leadership coaching, training, and consulting organization. Well, let me introduce my special guest, and you can see him with a big smile, Keith Rosen, CEO of Profit Builders, and Keith has been named one of the best sales leadership coaching organizations worldwide. Since 1989, Keith delivered his program to over 3 million sales leaders over 6 continents and over 75 countries. Just incredible. He's the author of 3 books, Own Your Day, Coaching Salespeople into Sales Champions, the #1 best-selling management coaching book on Amazon, and he's just recently introduced Sales Leadership, which was named the 2008 Sales Book of the Year. Inc. magazine and Fast Company named Keith one of the 5 most influential executive coaches. He's been featured in Entrepreneur, Fortune, and the Wall Street Journal. Let's welcome this month's guest, Keith Rosen. Well, I am so excited today, and I want to welcome Keith Rosen, who I feel is the pioneer of sales leadership coaching. He's been out there talking about it, creating master sales coaches throughout the world, and he is a master coach himself, which I think, Keith, there's maybe 1,000 master coaches, less, more?
Probably less.
So it's an incredible designation. Obviously, you've gone through an incredible amount of work to get there, and you got it when no one understood the value of coaching. So kudos to you. Welcome to the Fireside. I know here in Toronto, it is a snowy, cold day, so the Fireside is appropriate. And I'm so glad to have you.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Okay, so let's get right into it. Let's get at her, as Chris Cuomo says, and sometimes you look a little like Chris Cuomo, but
hope that's a compliment. I don't know.
Well, he's the same way. He thinks he's a good-looking guy, but won't admit it. So we're going to talk about how to develop a coaching culture, and we know there's challenges in organizations getting coaching off the ground. I've read parts of your book. I'm not the best reader, but I've really found them insightful. And let's just create some definitions. Let's have a sort of a standardization. And if you were to define what a coaching culture is, how would you define that?
Let's take one step back and define even what coaching is.
All right.
Because I'm sure you'll agree, Stephen, that the majority of organizations out there, they're throwing that word coaching out all day long. Managers are saying, let me coach you, and they have no idea what coaching is. They're just using it as another word for being the chief problem solver, and they don't even have a framework to do it. So how are they coaching? So let's just even the playing field with the real simple definition of coaching. Okay. My definition of coaching is the art of creating new possibilities.
Oh, interesting.
Because in every conversation, right, just like you and I are going to be doing, we're going to be creating new possibilities. Because I'm pretty coachable. I know you're a pretty coachable guy.
Well, I'm open.
I hope so, all right. And
although in the past I've been told not, but I've matured a little bit.
Well, that's when the lessons, they become harder and harder until you can't avoid them anymore, right?
Well, they keep coming back until you solve them.
Amen. So that to me, in every conversation, in any interaction you're having, whether it's with a peer, friend, customer, direct report, boss, every conversation, you're either creating a new possibility or you're just driving your own agenda and expectation. And managers, you know, if you're doing that, if every day you wake up and you're feeling like you're pushing a boulder uphill, and every day it feels like you have to hit that reset button and keep pushing your people to perform, I can tell you now, if you're leaving that day exhausted and drained, you're not coaching. And that is not bad news. That's good news, because a lot of organizations, Stephen, and I'm sure you see this, they're successful in spite of themselves.
It's true. But what is the potential? It's always a question of how much better can you do, right? In business, we're always about accelerating performance.
And how many times, and I'm sure you've seen this, is companies collapse a good culture. Let's throw the word coaching out there. A good coaching culture. They collapse that with hitting revenue goals, and they're mutually exclusive. just because companies are hitting revenue goals doesn't mean you have a healthy, thriving culture.
True, very true. Yes,
I mean,
I'm with
I'm sure you're spending your day like me talking managers and leaders off the ledge often, because at what cost? Family, stress, health, peace of mind. There has to be a different way. And this is what keeps us so busy these days.
Well, there's a great need out there. There's tremendous burnout. We know that managers are struggling all through the chain, whether you're the senior manager or you're the frontline manager. There's tons of stress on performance, and yet we still do things the old way. So as much as, I've been out here preaching the message for 16 years, and you probably a little bit longer, it's still a challenge. And I just worked with one large pharmaceutical company, and they've rolled out coaching and told me, we don't need your help. We have a global program. And 2 years later, they came back and said, well, we're not getting traction.
Shock.
Look, I was, no, right. Because the challenge is, you can train as much as you want. It doesn't mean it gets implemented in the field. And that's almost, one of the big challenges when, we train companies or we train managers. So coaching, I love the possibilities approach. I'm a little more pragmatic in my approach, where, I talk about helping improve skills. And, for me, it's about focusing in one area of improvement, because it's hard as an adult to change in more than one area or to grow and improve. So I take a very sort of focused, pragmatic approach, and look at success as a coach. If you're able to help someone get better in one area in the course of a year. Now, if you can do more, that's great, but keeping it very simple. But it's more than that, because it's how we approach. It's our mindset, right? It requires a tremendous mindset shift.
And take for example, why don't managers coach? Let alone, they don't have the skills. They haven't been coached before. They don't know what good coaching feels like or looks like. Well, if they don't know what it feels like or looks like, and they're not getting what they need, it's often very difficult for them to recognize the needs of their team, because it's hard to give what you don't get yourself.
100%. So as an expert, where does it start? Where do we start to build that culture?
Yeah, it really starts by looking at your company ecosystem. What is, this evolutionary journey that your organization is going through? What does it look like? And how many times I lost count, companies saying, oh, Keith, we came in, we had sales training, really didn't stick, kind of the flavor of the month. And we don't know why. Well, I'll really tell you why. Because if the managers don't know how to coach, if they don't have the mindset and the skill set, which is learned and developed like a world-class athlete, any training initiative you launch will fail. You will not achieve the results, the return on investment that you want, because it is up to the manager to develop sales champions. Salespeople, you put them through training, you develop baseline salespeople. Want to develop champions? That's where the coach comes in.
You're right. But even before that, the challenge is, one, not all the reps are receptive to coaching, because probably it's not very good. But talking about, where do we start with the coaching culture? Yes, before you do training, I'm with you. Before you do sales training, if you don't have anyone to support it, then it's a flavor of the day. The old adage that in 30 days, whatever you learned without reinforcement, probably quicker with most people like me who have ADD, right? Within 3 minutes, if not reinforced, you forget it. But joking aside, where do we start? We have some senior leaders on, and they want to build a coaching culture. Actually, let's even go back, because you talked about this whole thing. Sales might be great, but still might not be a healthy environment. Mm-hmm. So why would someone want to build a coaching culture? And I know it's kind of a rhetorical question, but I want your opinion.
I would actually say, I don't think it's such a rhetorical question, because again, companies think they're doing great in spite of themselves, right? And you asked me where we start. Rather than come from a place of, oh my gosh, sales is down, what do we need to do? Oh, let's react and train someone.
Yeah.
At that point, it's too late. So you need to get ahead of this if you really want to truly innovate and create. So where I start with my clients is really step one: define your culture. Don't send me your vision statement or your company values, because quite frankly, you're not living it. You're not living, companies don't live it, because if they did, oh, integrity and transparency and coaching and fostering change and positivity and support and collaboration, core values, self-accountability, creativity. These sound wonderful when it's on a framed out on a wall.
I'm with you. In fact, they sit in strategic plans in big binders. Although maybe these days people don't use big binders. It sits on people's laptops.
And here's my point. So
Yes.
that's not enough to shift the culture, because let alone most of the time, those visions and values are created by senior leadership. But how are you gonna ever have buy-in? And to your point, where do you start? How do you create a holistic culture? How can you even start creating the buy-in with your entire organization if you're not getting everyone involved to put their thumbprint on their values, on the company vision? When everyone is now taking part in crafting that, they now feel ownership of it. And now you have a unified front focused towards a shared goal and a shared vision. So what I do is I actually deliver before my clients say, hey, listen, I don't want to work with you yet, Mr. and Mrs. Client. I know you're great and your company is wonderful, but I don't know if there's a fit yet here. First thing I want you to do is I need you to take my cultural assessment. To your point, I send out a company culture assessment.
Oh, cool.
So how do companies actually know the health of their culture? Most companies don't, and maybe they send out a one-question survey at the end of the year to their team. How much intel are you really getting from that?
Yeah.
So what's present if you have a coaching culture? Well, let's walk through some of those things. Your level of attrition drops. You're retaining your top people.
100 people are engaged.
You're increasing engagement. You're retaining more clients. You're upselling and cross-selling more. You're hitting your goals. Here's a shocker. Everyone on your team is going to hit their quota and goals, not just the 80-20 rule, which I don't believe in. Okay, that's old school. That's an excuse. Now that managers can tap into the skill of coaching, it doesn't have to be that way.
You're 100% right.
So now let's keep going. How about, Stephen, how about waking up and feeling a sense of purpose and going to work every day and leaving feeling like you've made a difference, feeling like you've made an impact, feeling like you've contributed and helped someone, whether it's a client or whether it's one of your direct reports, succeed or achieve something that they didn't even think was possible. If you're not experiencing that and you can feel my passion around this.
I could see it. It's amazing. In fact, as you talk about that, I think about my daughter who just started a job. And every day she wakes up with that passion, right? I want to go to work. I'm working on this. It's something new. And I guess over time we get socialized, especially in the corporate world, that as a senior manager, as a middle manager, as a rep, we're inundated with minutia.
And we get, to your point, you said it earlier, I didn't want to step over it. It's too important. As adults, to your point, we get hardened by our experiences.
Yes.
Whether it's life experience, but there's only life. There's no personal and work life. There's just life now. And we get hardened by the experiences in our life. And especially at work, we get to a point where we say, well, this is just how it is. This is just.
Oh, yes.
This is, come on, Keith, we can't change.
No.
Come on, Keith. This coaching thing, it sounds a little airy, fluffy. Come on. I got numbers to hit. Oh, and by the way, I don't have time to coach. I bet you never heard that one, Stephen.
That's the first time. Any of your customers bring that up?
I've never heard that before.
That is the biggest issue we all face is time. But the fact is, if we're not coaching, then we don't have time.
Thank you.
Right?
And the fact is, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this, is companies are so good at over-engineering everything. And our job is to make their job easier.
It's all about simplifying, right?
Exactly right. And the assumptions managers make around coaching is exactly what's preventing them developing the coaching skills they need to achieve what they want, which is creating top performers, teams of sales champions, a healthy, thriving culture. So where does this go? Where does this lead to? Well, if the managers are not taking the time to truly develop their skills, if they're not taking the time to even ask people, hey, what motivates you? They're not taking the time to even have these conversations because they're getting stuck, to your point, in that minutia, the result driven. We got to hit the KPIs. We got to hit our results. Oh, coaching? No, we don't have time for it. The assumption is coaching is something I do to someone. Let's shatter that right now. You don't do coaching. You be coach. In other words, It's who you are and how you show up. And let's make it really easy. It's simply a language. At the end of the day, leadership is a language, and the language of leadership is coaching. So if you're not studying the language of leadership, if you're not studying the art of enrolling people to help create alignment and set positive intentions so your people are on board and bought into all change, you're going to constantly be on that proverbial hamster wheel, running around trying to close that last deal at the end of the quarter. And the fact is, it's just a language like you're learning Spanish or Italian or Mandarin or any language out there. You're a learning coach. So it's not something I'm adding to your plate, Mr. and Mrs. Manager. It's just changing how you engage with your people in a more empowering way.
It's all about conversations, right? How we talk.
Conversations.
You know, that we change our mindset, that we're not there to tell people what to do, because the quickest way to get something done is, okay, I'm going to tell you to go from point A to point B. And then 3 weeks later, I'm going to tell you to go from point A to point B. And that's where a lot of time is spent.
And 3 weeks after that, I'm going to tell you again. And then, Stephen, we're going to say, why aren't you getting it? We had this conversation,
right?
So the manager has the audacity to get frustrated at their people. And let me be exceedingly clear, Mr. and Mrs. Leaders out there. How dare you ever lose your patience, get upset or frustrated with your people or around their performance when it's always your fault? Now, I'm not saying that to deliver bad news. I'm saying that because it's good news. That means you have the power to change. And the power of change rests in your ability to master the art and language and habit of coaching.
100%. So tell me, okay, we've talked about the soft skill of coaching and how we change our mindset to be able to be good coaches. Are you finding that organizations make coaching a critical success factor?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So when I look at sales organizations, they're trying to do 10 things. And some of it is, I say, okay, let's get back and let's focus. What are the 3 things you need to do extremely well to be successful? And if coaching isn't on their list, well, coaching is not going to happen, right? It's just not critical. And I guess when I look at critical success factors, and maybe I'm old school, but if you put it on that list, then how do you measure it? Right? Because what gets measured gets done. If you want to change a habit, it's like if I want to lose weight, which I do, but I somehow can't.
You look great.
Well, from this way up, I'm fucking stellar. It's the barrel that I'm carrying with me makes it a little more challenging. But
I do some weight training and health coaching as well. If you want to.
Okay, where do I sign up? How many? Is it a 30 day?
Stephen.
Is it a 30-day course? Right?
No, you're getting perfect health in one day, just like you'll be a perfect coach going to one-day event. That's all you need, right?
You got it.
Last time I checked, the greatest athletes in the world are constantly being coached, trained, and developed. You want to be a world-class business person, a world-class sales athlete and leader? Coaching never stops for your people and for you.
So here's the interesting dilemma. And, some of my data says 50% of companies are investing in sales management coaching. Okay? And 50% are not. Okay. Whether that's true or not, it was a survey.
It's actually less. It's actually less.
Okay. So regardless of the number. So some companies completely don't get it. They're not investing. But the problem is the ones who invest to try to build that are missing the boat. Because, as you said, training doesn't necessarily create master sales coaches. And again, if the second line is not bought in, yes, you can use an outside consultant, which is what I do in many cases, to hold the manager's hand, help them gently become coaches, because a one-day course doesn't change anything. And that's what kind of twigged when you said that. So, when we look at training or developing is the proper word. Mm-hmm. Sales managers, you said it. You need to maybe, help them with the learning the skills, but without the reinforcement coaching, that other 50% are missing the boat.
It's a waste. And here's a really scary statistic. I actually recently heard yesterday, the latest stat came out for sales attainment of quota for 2019 globally. I thought it was going to be about 51%. It's actually 43%.
Wow.
43% of salespeople are going to hit their number in 2019. It's getting worse and worse every year. It's not getting better. So when C-suite, are we going to wake up and realize technology is not going to continually drive your organization's success, especially if it's just making your people do the wrong thing faster?
I'm with you. In fact, sales enablement, if we want to call it that, or sales technology, everyone thinks is a silver bullet. And really, and I guess I'm somewhat biased, probably like you, but I actually think the silver bullet, I'm going to say the word, is coaching.
Amen. Amen.
It's becoming a great coach. It's getting your managers to be great coaches. It's coaching your managers as a senior leader.
And
So,
the
so
problem
we
is,
don't
even,
cover up fundamental problems with technology.
yeah,
Technology
agreed.
doesn't correct the fundamental problems.
It often makes it worse
Yes.
because the more visibility you have, which you need, what are you doing with that visibility? If you don't know how to coach to what you're experiencing, to your point, you coach the specifics, you don't coach the general. While in every conversation, you want to create a new possibility, you're only focusing on one topic and seeing that through to completion before you're going to jump on another topic in a
Yeah.
coaching
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah. It's true.
So, yeah,
And less is more, right? If you do less and I call it focus, but whatever we want to call it, drilling down, being specific, you don't resolve an issue by moving on to the next one. But so I kind of feel bad. I look at companies that, hey, are, leading the way, that they're the less than 50% that are really gung-ho and think that they can train their way out of the problem. And most training companies, I'm not picking on training companies, because I'm a coaching company, who may do some training.
I'm a transformational company, so.
Oh, you're a rock star. I forgot to mention that. If anyone's noticed that that's not his first job of coaching. His first job is being a rock star.
Yeah, this is my dream job. This isn't my vision.
I get it, and it's, you've kept it alive for what, the last 40 years or so, right? That
I always say, Stephen, music is the universal equilibrium.
You got it. So
there is an E chord in every song out there in the world. There's a C chord with every type of music in the world. How amazing it would be if we can actually solve world peace through music. But that's me being a little Pollyannic now, so I'll take a step back.
Spending good intentions, right?
That's right.
So let me sort of close down. I mean, this has been great discussion, and I don't know if we've solved the corporate problem of.
We're not gonna solve the universal global conundrum in 40 minutes.
Well, I think if you put two Rosen heads together, maybe, just maybe, we can strike a chord.
I think you're onto something.
So around that, I'm going to sort of, I tried to get at macro, where we're talking about senior leadership really driving the process, and you even made it a little more macro, where you talk about what's your vision, what's your values, let's build it together. I don't think I'm there yet with the organizations I work with, but hey, that's a great way to start, because again, if coaching is not critical, then why are you even doing it?
And let's go a step further on that, Stephen. Listen, now that I'm an old guy, I'm done pulling punches with clients. I just tell them how it is, and they really appreciate that. And the fact is, and please tell me if you've ever experienced this. I'm talking to a senior VP or the head of sales excellence, or the chief sales officer in an organization, and Keith, we are 100% committed to developing a coaching culture. We know we're not coaching. We know that the feedback we've gotten from our salespeople is less than 5% of them are actually getting good coaching that's actually making a difference. So we know we need this coaching, and we know we need to empower our managers. And I'm fully committed to this and being the stakeholder for that. My next comment is, that is fantastic. You are exactly the type of person or organization I love to work with. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the training. I'm not going to be there, Keith. What do you mean? You just told me you're an advocate, an endorser, an influencer. You want to develop a coaching culture, you may not know what it is, and you tell me you're not going to be there. What message do you think that's going to send to the organization? I just say stop right there. If I can't get senior leadership, bye-bye.
Well, and I mean, that's critical.
Avalanches roll downhill, right, Stephen?
Well, last Friday, I heard a similar thing with the same company who said, yeah, you know what? Some of our managers understand coaching, but they're still telling. Okay, so I kind of, maybe I'm, bashful and said, well, what's senior management doing about it? Well, the VP was sitting right there, and I think I offended this individual by saying that because they don't know me that well. But it's like, well, you put all the foundational pieces in place. They've done the training, they've rolled out the tools, they've supported with second line manager coaching, which is one of the things I was insistent upon. And they built what I call the cadence component, where they're tracking some of those things and making sure they're happening. But if they're not happening, where's the accountability? Well, to me, at the end of the day, saying that we know our managers aren't good coaches, they're still telling, well, it's up to you to change that.
And then what happens? A few months goes by and it just becomes that flavor of the month. And well, then their team is sitting there saying, this will pass too.
Right. Well, sometimes it's a flavor of the year.
That too.
Right.
But companies don't even realize that when they're trying to put a Band-Aid on such a massive problem, you're actually creating more collateral damage in your wake, because you're sitting there talking and sharing with your organization how we're going to develop a healthier culture, and we're going to be coaching, and we're going to develop a universal language of coaching. And then it stops. So what message do you think you're sending to your company? You're better off not rolling it out.
Yeah. Well, and then people begin to adapt to flavor, saying, as you said, it'll pass. But at least this organization is moving forward next year. They're continuing on. But I think as consultants or as coaches or as business advisors or mentors, the success in business is when you accelerate a process, when you make it happen faster. So, in my days when I was VP of sales, I moved on stuff that I thought was critical. And I sold it through the organization. I got everyone on board. I didn't do a lot, but the things I did rocked. And I look at it and say, okay, this is your year of the coach, but it's okay that most of our managers are not really there. They know what to do. They just don't do it. And I think, anyway.
So isn't that the difference between understanding, I guess it's my distinction of understanding something and getting something. Most of my clients, like you, they're really smart people. And they conceptually understand coaching. After all, you can read an article or read a book on coaching and conceptually understand it.
Yes.
It doesn't mean you're getting it, which means shifting what you understand here and bringing it right here to your heart. So it's who you are and how you show up every day. And a book is not going to transform you into a master coach. An article is not going to transform you into an exceptional leader. You managers need to have your own coach. And if you don't, you're doing yourself, your team, and the company a massive disservice.
And the upside of doing that, because I asked you the question earlier, why would they want to implement a coaching culture? Outside all the good reasons, the altruistic reasons, there's performance reasons that say, hey, you're going to get a tremendous lift in sales. It doesn't happen overnight. Like some of the programs that I see on Facebook that within 3 months, you're all of a sudden, Keith Rosen as a coach, right? But the point is, it's like great athletes don't just become great athletes. It's constant training, constant coaching, constant improvement. And you have to keep at that. You have to be focused on that particular skill. So we do have some sales managers who tune in, and it's, it's kind of hard for them to change the culture of the company. But as I think in coaching sales champions, you talk about individual sales managers creating the right culture within their region.
Yes.
Right.
They call it a coaching subculture.
Okay. So let's talk. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, I was just saying it's a culture that exists within a culture. So when I remember speaking to some global organizations, 100 years old, massive companies, and of course I'm sitting there and I'm delivering my coach training, and they're bought in. They see it. They see the value. After them coaching each other, they want more peer coaching. And of course the question comes up, Keith, I'm bought in. This is great. We're all bought in here, but our whole entire company isn't bought in yet. And we're the first team that's going through this. And to try to change a culture feels like trying to turn a battleship, and it feels overwhelming. And my response to them is, then don't. Focus on creating a subculture. And that is the culture that you as the leader create on your team. That is always in your control because your direct reports are calling you, they're meeting with you, they're texting with you, they're going out on appointments with you, they're having customer calls with you. They're engaging with you every day, and you are responding to them every day. And in every conversation and in every interaction, you are always doing one of two things. You are either building trust and building people, or you're eroding them.
Yeah, it goes one of two ways. So let's give some advice. I mean, this has taken a little while to get us together. And looking at those people who are tuning in and say, hey, you know what, I hear it, I love it. My company's just not there yet. How can I, or what is the formula? I'm looking for a formula, but then, to have an impactful coaching conversation. I want to be the best coach I can be. I don't care about my boss. I don't care about the company. As you said, I am the company to my people.
I'm the culture. Manager's the culture.
Okay. How can we help them? How can we give them some sage advice that they can take forward? I was going to say come January, but today. I will tell managers
every day you are not coaching effectively, you have just lost the sale.
And a day.
Is that enough of a cost for managers to finally stop, and C-suite to finally stop and say, we're missing the boat on this. This can be our new competitive edge. So back to your question, Steve.
Yes.
A framework. So I know we don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to kind of talk to this at a high level. And we talked about mindset, and of course, beliefs always precede experience. How you think is then what you get and how you act. So there's certain, I call it the inner game of coaching and leadership. The first thing that managers need to do, or let me take that back, who they need to be, is make several mental shifts. Number one, from leading with answers to leading with questions.
Yeah.
Number two, seek to understand other people's point of view before you share yours. Because let's face it, managers are like heat-seeking missiles. They run around searching for problems because they love to fix stuff. Well, if you're always running around for problems, looking for problems to fix, when are you actually looking at the wins and reinforcing the wins and the best behavior that's actually helping you create the results you want? So seek to understand other people's point of view, because if you go into a conversation, oh, I hear that challenge. I was in your job. I know exactly what you need to do. Here's what you need to do. Now go do that. The manager is thinking they just gave a ton of value to that person and saved time.
And they slap themselves in the back, being non-judgmental.
Of course. And here's the challenge, though. The rep leaves thinking, wow, one of two things. This is great. My manager's doing my job. I don't have to become a critical thinker. And I don't have to be accountable, because if my boss's ideas don't work, it's his fault or her fault, not mine.
Yeah.
And number two, which is really sad, is, and I hear this all the time, people at any level of management, everyone has a manager, right? And people come to me like, Keith, my boss, they keep telling me all the time what to do. They never stop and ask me my opinions. I guess they don't trust me. I guess they don't believe in my abilities. So here a manager is saying, wait a second, that's not my intention. But that's how it's landing on people. Right. And even though I know managers have a good heart, most of them are coming from a really good place. If our intentions managed and matched our actions and our communication, then there wouldn't be a 72% level of disengagement in the workforce. There wouldn't be a statistic that I just heard. Only 3 out of 10 managers are actually equipped on how to train. Forget about coaching, forget about managing. Well, then we wonder why the sales targets, and every year companies are missing their targets year after year after year. And every year that managers are not truly developing the skill and the habit and the mindset of coaching, every year you're just going to be losing market share. And they're not connecting the dots that coaching can really be their new competitive edge. Because what's a competitive edge? It starts with your people.
100%. Everyone has the same technology. And in most industries, everyone has the same product. There's little product differentiation.
So what's the only difference?
It's the people. I'm with you. I'm with you. You're,
And
you're
isn't it
preaching to the
fascinating?
converted.
And isn't it fascinating how companies spend so much time, so much money recruiting, interviewing, onboarding, and let's even make an assumption that their interviewing process is good. And that's a whole other fireside chat we could do, right, Stephen?
For sure.
Let's say they even have the right hire. Let's even say they have the right onboarding process. It's three legs of a stool: the right hire, the right onboarding process, and ongoing effective coaching. And if one of those legs are not missing, the stool falls. And most of the time, it's that leg of coaching. So you can have the greatest candidates, you can have a great hire, you can even have them go through their onboarding. But the fact is, you're going to lose really good people because you haven't helped develop them to where they want to be or where they can be.
And I'm with you. And interestingly enough, I had a fireside chat with Anita Bai, who is an expert on millennials. And the one takeaway that I had is millennials want to be coached. Millennials expect to be coached. So if we think that the new generation of leaders, of employees, don't care, they don't want to work hard, we're wrong. They want to be developed. They want to be coached. In fact, if they're not given those two opportunities, guess what? They leave. They're not with you. And the cost of backfill and replacement.
I mean, you're the data guy. What's the last time I heard, to replace a $100,000 salaried salesperson costs about $1.2 million.
Yeah, 10 times,
$1.2 million taken to all the time and energy and onboarding and insurance and all the other things you're doing for them.
Lost opportunity.
And all the time that they're missing that, now they have to go out and start the process again. That's called insanity.
So I wish we had more time, because I think we can both talk
for the day
ongoing with this. And I want to thank you, for taking the time out of your busy day and spending it with people I care about, the same people that you care about, sharing your great insights, your gems, your pearls. We have a lot of work to do out there.
We do. That's what's keeping us busy, right, Stephen?
And it's in a fun place to be, because we can impact people big time.
I tell managers all the time, you have the same job as I do. And they look at me and they say, what? Keith, you love what you do. Every day you get to work with different people and help them be the best them they can be. And you get to share, your core values, and you get to live your core values. We don't have the same job. Yes, we do. You just chose not to adopt it in your mindset yet. Because once you are a coach, you will enjoy your job again. And that's when if you're coaching effectively, that's when people are coming to work. They're flourishing, they're growing, they're collaborating. There's an element of deep, deep trust and transparency. There's people that are coming to you, Mr. Manager or Mrs. Manager, first when they're thinking about leaving. How many managers can say that? How many managers can say, you know what, when my people are thinking about leaving a job or leaving the position, they always come to me first for guidance? No, most of the time the manager's the last person to know.
Right.
Well, think about that. I think there's a word that's missing here, is trust. So what I would like to do, Stephen, in the spirit of your ask, I would like to leave everyone with one specific coaching strategy that they can use right now, today.
Okay, I'm sitting on pins and needles.
Okay, here we go. It better be good. Let's do a quick role play here, right? So okay. I'm just going to use you as my coachee, okay? Coachee, you come to me. Hey, boss, I'm looking for some help. Great. Two options here. This is your defining moment as a leader. You can go to the left and be the chief problem solver, solve their problems, and you'll be solving their problems for the rest of their career. Or you could take a step back and go to the right and just use this 60-second coaching strategy, which is absolutely bulletproof. And here it is. Stephen, I appreciate you coming to me and sharing this with me. And you know what, though? You're a lot closer to this and to this situation. And I trust you and I trust your judgment. So what's your opinion on how to move forward and resolve this to achieve the results you want? How long did that take?
Love it. And
that's it. Now think about what we just did. We acknowledge them, okay? We acknowledge that we're going to support them. We acknowledge their role in the situation. We empower them by saying, I trust you in your judgment. And the most important part of that question is this: what's your opinion on how to move forward and achieve the result you want? I didn't ask, what's your solution? What's your answer? What's your strategy? Because solutions, answers, and strategies could be wrong. And people don't like to be wrong. Opinions are not right or wrong. They just are.
Their feelings. Gotcha.
So if I was to say, hey, Stephen, what's your opinion on how to move forward and handle this? Keith, I don't know. Wait a second. You don't know your own opinion? So you won't get the I don't know, because everyone has an opinion.
Well, okay, so you've evolved that, because I remember I just twigged a Keith Rosen line saying, if someone says they don't know, you say, what if you did know? And I've actually used that and given you credit for it.
Great.
Say, you know, this guy Keith Rosen, if you ever say I don't know, say, what if you did know, right? That's what
Isn't it amazing that they first they look at you and then they actually answer? Well, if you did know, how would you resolve that?
Yeah.
Well, if I did, I guess I would do this. All of a sudden, we're challenging their thinking again, the muscle in between their ears. Now, I want to make sure I don't lose, I don't drop off and not see this coaching strategy through. Because a lot of managers at this point would say, okay, Keith, that's great. I asked the question, they respond, and you know what? Their response is spot on. And they nailed it. But what happens if they share a solution or idea that isn't going to work? Do I tell them that's wrong? No, you're going to disempower them. You're going to throw trust out the window. What you do is very simple. Hey, Stephen, thanks so much for sharing your ideas and opinions. How about we walk through your ideas together to ensure that your strategy achieves the results you want?
Beautiful.
Now it's a collaboration and not an interrogation.
Rock on. That's what I was looking for, that silver bullet. You got it. So thank you, Keith. It's been a pleasure.